Hey guys, miss me? It's been about a month since I last posted. I know, a long time to keep you guys waiting for
Oh my goodness!
So, it's been about 2 years since I posted a single thing to this channel, huh? Well, better late than never, so let's get started. So recently, I was scrolling through my YouTube feed and came across this video. The video itself I didn't like, but it did spark something within me to make this two-part series of videos. In the first part, well, this video, I'm gonna explain my gripes with Jason Todd. Then in part 2, I'll give my preferred fixes to his character. So, the problem with Modern Redhood is that he's more of a prop than a full-fledged character, with concise and consistent motivations, beliefs, etc, etc. You know, things that make a character a, well, you know, character. But why do I think that, you might ask? Well, I guess to understand how we got such a miserable character, I'm gonna have to explain his original foundational character traits, so you can see how they evolved, devolved, and were outright ignored and rewritten over time. So, no better place to start off than the beginning. Jason started off as a street rat kid who was stealing tires off the Batmobile. I know, the backstory that everyone knows about by this point. He got caught by Bruce and taken to Ma Gunn's school for wayward kids, which turned out to be a bait and switch. Ma Gunn was using her philanthropist front as a cover to hide her using these kids to commit crimes. Jason, upon finding out about this, dips and goes right back to stealing tires again, which leads to him getting confronted by Batman a second time, where he explains his situation and disappears. No, seriously, he pulls Batman's own bat disappearing trick on him. It's hilarious, who taught this kid this? Anyways, Bruce goes to stop the crime in progress and ends up in trouble. But then Jason comes in for a save, and they finally work together to stop Ma Gunn's plot, and Bruce decides to adopt Jason and make him Robin. Let me quickly stress a point, because this is a massive point of, mischaracterization for Jason. Bruce didn't adopt Jason and make him Robin to take him off the streets and stop him from becoming his enemy down the road. And Jason didn't become a crime fighter because it was a game and he liked taking his anger on criminals. Bruce made Jason Robin because Jason was innately good despite his upbringing. He only committed crimes out of necessity and refused to help people like Ma Gunn. He actively risked his life to help Batman fight against her when he really didn't have to. Jason was never on track to becoming a black-hearted crook. His optimism, golden heart, and determination is what won Bruce over. So, Jason had a pretty cool setup pre-Robin. He had the golden heart that all Robins before and after him have, but his rough upbringing forced him to live within a gray area and made his personality a bit caustic and closed off. So Jason became Bruce's second son and Robin. Contrary to popular belief, he wasn't really that much of a violent, uncontrollable, and disobedient partner he gets portrayed as now. He was, for the most part, fairly mild-mannered, optimistic, and brave, with a sarcastic sense of humor. But there were points where his temper did flare up, and he did things that would be considered strange for a Robin, and I think it's best for us to examine those situations for us to get a better grasp on why he could get violent or go rogue on Batman. The first time we see his temper flare up is when he finds out Two-Face murdered his father, Willis Todd, and Bruce kept this information from him. Jason then attempted to seriously injure, if not outright kill Dent in their second encounter, but then after a talk with Bruce, where he's given time to calm down and confront Bruce on this feeling of betrayal and truly process the truth behind his father's disappearance, Jason doesn't try to kill or hurt Dent in the third encounter. On the contrary, goes out of his way to save Dent's life. So what does this tell us about Jason? Well, he's fiercely protective and vengeful when it comes to those he deems his family or loved ones. Dent kills his father, so he wants to retaliate in equal measure. Also, this is the first time of many times Jason's gonna feel let down and betrayed by Bruce. So, next up on Jason's rage extravaganza is when him and Bruce encounter a pimp beating up a prostitute. Jason then confronts this man and beats him to a bloody pulp. So, what does this tell us about Jason? Beyond the obvious, he doesn't like the strong thinking on the weak. It shows he likes to have people play by their own rules. What do I mean by this? He's willing to meet criminals at what level of depravity they're at, and deal out the punishment they are willing to dish out to others. When Bruce questions Jason on how far he's going with that pimp, even commenting on how Jason could have killed him, Jason responds pretty apathetically. He didn't care if that lowlife dies, the same way that guy didn't care if the girl he was beating on and threatening to cut up died or not. Another point where Jason shows signs of his rogue nature to Batman's code was after a woman named Judy Kowalski, or Kowalski, like the penguin from Madagascar? I don't know. The sister of a murder victim who exacted vengeance on her sister's killer by manipulating him into pursuing her as his final victim in Gotham before he ditched town after he duped the Gotham's justice system into letting him go scot-free. After Bruce explained her reasoning to Jason on what she did, Jason agreed with her to Batman's shock. I want to highlight this part of Judy's testimony because I think Judd Winnick, the creator of Jason's Red Hood persona, calls back to it during his time writing Jason. And the final time I want to cover Jason going rogue is the story of the diplomat's son and his maybe murder of Philippe Garzonas. For a semi-quick synopsis for those uninitiated, Philippe Garzones is, well, a diplomat's son, who kidnapped and assaulted a woman named Gloria Stanton twice. Bruce and Jason intervene and save the woman on the second time, but instead of getting booked and jailed, Felipe gets released because he told the GCPD a bogus story of how Gloria came to his place uninvited and her injuries were from a simple trip down the stairs. He was able to escape charges due to his wealth and power of being, well, as the title says, the diplomat's son, giving him some degree of diplomatic immunity. Jason and Bruce, not wanting to give up for the sake of Gloria's mental state, concoct a plan to get him on other charges that have evidence that he couldn't weasel his way out of, like drug charges. So they end up busting him on the purchase of cocaine, which leads to Garzones only being kicked out of the country on a dishonorable discharge. On his way out of the GCPD, Garzones makes a call threatening Gloria, sending her already fragile mental state into overdrive, causing her to off herself. Jason and Bruce find her dead, and this sends Jason to a frenzy when he beams it straight to Garzones' place. The second Batman turns his back to call in Gloria passing. Jason then, depending on how you interpret it, kills Garzones by pushing him off the balcony of his penthouse intentionally, or accidentally causing Garzones to slip off the balcony, in which, unlike the Two-Face situation, Jason chooses not to save him and lets Newton's law deal out justice. Either way, this causes a rift between him and Bruce and leads to a death in the family. This is important because it shows Jason being let down by the law and Bruce failing to take a decisive action, leading to the death of an innocent person. Jason then, depending on your interpretation, takes matters into his own hands and stops Garzones permanently, or goes to Garzones' place with violent intention, or things spiral out of control and Garzones dies. Either way, Jason killed someone or caused the death of someone and feels zero remorse, which is more than justified in this particular case. A quick side note, I'm in the camp of Jason didn't actually push him off. I don't think Jason had in him to actually kill someone at this point. Also, I think Judd Winnick calls back to the story with the whole Egon situation and how Jason handled it in Red Hood Lost Days. I think I've made my point on the most important aspect of Jason's character though, that make up his core. Jason is a character with a good heart that truly wants to do the right thing, but due to circumstances and how his life has molded him, he has become very accustomed to living in a gray area and thinking about things in not always the most moral way. Jason, despite being fairly closed off and sometimes standoffish, deeply loves the people he deems family and friends and will kill for them if need be or in retaliation, because that's how Jason views and expresses his love. So let's fast forward to Jason's resurrection in universe by writer Judd Winnick. Jason under Judd Winnick was a morally great character who was kind of split in half by his selfish and selfless motivations. On one hand, Jason was a vigilante who believed crime can't be stopped, only contained. So he decided to take on Batman's philosophy of controlling crime with fear to its neurological endpoint, by becoming a part of the crime eating away at Gotham and controlling it from the inside using a fear of death to coerce criminals into following his rules to enact positive change, while simultaneously sticking a middle finger to his old man. On the other hand, Jason, for justified and unjustified reasons, felt incredibly hurt that Bruce didn't kill Joker upon his murder. From Jason's perspective, he loved Bruce and would kill for his family. So if Bruce was unwilling to do the same, does that mean Bruce never loved him? Was Jason just a soldier in Bruce's crusade? Did his death mean nothing? This feeling of betrayal and abandonment caused Jason to concoct a plan to get his closure on these feelings eating away at him, which we see him enact at the end of Under the Red Hood. The first half sounds morally questionable, but selfless and well-meaning, while the second part sounds petty, antagonistic, and selfish, right? Well, there you go, that's the crux of Jason's character. It's a constant war between his selfless and heroic side versus his vengeful, hurt, and petty side. While generally, his selfless side does win out, and he will put his self-gratification on the back burner or outright harm it to do the right thing, like in Red Hood Lost Days, when he decides to put his cover and life in danger to stop a terrorist attack, rescue some trafficked kids, or when he went out of his way to prove Black Lightning's innocence in The Outsiders, and when he decided to take up Black Mask before getting his closure with Batman and the Joker at the end of Under the Hood. There are plenty of points where his petty and hypocritical side wins over, and he spends pretty much an entire night trolling Batman and Green Arrow, or him getting a sick sense of satisfaction watching Bruce's inner turmoil having to reconcile what his son turned into, or him failing to kill the Joker in Lost Days due to his obsession with getting his closure with Bruce. To labor a point, half of Jason is the Robin we all know and love, who deep down believes in using his abilities to help others, while another half of Jason is deeply hurt and confused as to why his father betrayed his trust by leaving the Joker alive after his murder at the hands of the Clown. That unprocessed hurt and confusion manifests into feelings of hatred towards his old man, but at the same time, it's very clear he still loves his old man as well. Jason is an emotional wreck, but he's one of my favorite emotional wrecks in fiction. I really enjoy how this Jason does feel like an actual character evolution of Jason's Robin with some mild liberties. For example, I love how, whether intentionally or unintentionally, Winnick makes callbacks to the case of Judy Kowalski, I give up with that name, or how his personal motivation of being hurt over not being avenged feels like a callback to how he felt after he found out Two-Face killed his dad. While it's not perfect, this evolution of Jason's character does feel believable and can be supported on some level by his past characterization. There's more to Jason's character than that, but this overview has explained enough for you guys to get the point. Jason simultaneously carried a lot of positive and negative traits that he can end up acting on if the circumstance called for it, making him honestly one of my favorites back when Winnick wrote him. Jason could one second be a massive pain in the ass, the next second be a massive help to the heroes, the next time he could just be doing his own thing trying his best to ignore the heroes, then the next time partner up with the villain. You get the idea. He could be and do so much that a lot of other characters couldn't be and do, while never breaking his pre-established character upon resurrection due to how great he already was. But instead of using this pretty loose mold to craft new stories off of, writers who came after Winnick instead chose to completely reinvent the wheel with him every single time. Like in Battle for the Cowl, where he dressed up like Batman after Bruce dies and effectively becomes the Punisher, completely contradicting his controlled crime rather than fight it or kill it ideal he once had. Also during this story, he goes off his way to try and kill and seriously maim Nightwing, Damian Wayne, and Tim Drake and more for like no reason whatsoever. Like he deadass pulls out a Glock on 10-year-old Damian and just shoots him in the chest for shits and giggles. Like remember when Jason was all about like protecting kids and just like he didn't like seeing innocents getting harmed for no reason? Yeah, remember the guy who stopped the terrorist attack? Yeah, this is the same guy, right? This was the beginning of Jason being treated like a prop rather than a character. There are more examples of him being treated like this in the pre-New 52, like this, and this. But I think I got my point across, so I just want to get into Modern Red Hood and just explain my problems with that dumpster fire. So, Modern Jason has a lot of things I really dislike and really hate about him, but two stories I think perfectly encapsulate what I hate about like Modern Jason the most. That being Chip Zdarsky, there it is, Zdarsky's chair, and Matthew Rosenberg's Task Force Z. So, Zdarsky's story ends with Jason giving up his guns, but not killing due to such deep character exploration as,
I killed a man who sent his wife to the brink of death and was drugging his very own child. But it was a decision I made after careful consideration, because in my moral outlook, that kind of man deserves to die. No, I just got angry, and then I cried over a child abuser.
Barbara, my queen, help me please! This clusterfuck of bad writing caused Jason to go,
You know, Bruce, guns just don't feel right to me anymore.
This just feels like the weakest ass payoff to a weak ass setup that's hand-waved by literally the next writer in Rosenberg. Because in order to deconstruct the character's moral outlook and make a massive change to them, you're gonna have to, actually engage with that outlook in the first place. Otherwise, you're giving quote-unquote character development to a straw man. That's why Chair's resolution could never stick. There is no character-based foundation beneath Jason's reason to give up his guns, as we saw in how the Nightwing Annual literally failed to explain it. The Jason we see in Chair is a made-up version of Jason that has no basis of what he was originally like. If you look at Winnick's Jason, the first Jason to kill, and Zdarsky's upside downward version, it's like night and day. You cannot deconstruct something that literally doesn't exist. You made it up as you were writing the story. This Jason... Oh my god. Zdarsky's Jason has no principles, beliefs, or guiding code. He is entirely guided by emotion, which was never the case originally. The problem persists under Rosenberg, where in Task Force Z, Jason just says,
I've made some vague, unspecified mistakes in a fit of rage, for which I seek redemption. So now, I'm trusting a member of Batman's Rogues Gallery, who did this.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up. Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
I might be paraphrasing a teensy bit, but that's pretty much the general gist. There's not really a principled stance to be found in that entire book. Both Zdarsky's and Rosenberg's Jasons only move the plot forward through emotional outbursts. You can have a conversation about Under the Red Hood Jason with someone almost 2 decades after the comic was released about his beliefs and actions. How much of his actions were justified? What weren't? When he had a point, when he didn't, and when he went too far. All of that is completely absent unless we want to count Zdarsky writing Jason blindly going after addicts with zero plan. instead of doing detective work and building a plan and profile on each of his targets like how he did in Under the Red Hood. What Zdarsky insisted Jason is incapable of doing, without Bruce teaching this stupid failure of a son to do. This is all blatant rewriting of Jason's character for the worse, which Zdarsky did a bunch in Chair. Why am I talking so much more about Chair than Rosenberg's Task Force Z? Well, because at least there's something to talk about. Rosenberg's Jason is a character who was written to trust a member of Batman's rogues gallery over his, so-called beloved family. Even after it's revealed that Harvey fucked him over, he still trusts the guy anyway. This Jason is a genuine moron, somehow even stupider than how modern Jason is typically written, which honestly should just be an award at this point. But I've been going too hard on Rosenberg and Zdarsky. You can't 100% fault these two writers. Jason being written as an overgrown man-child of a character with barely any impulse control didn't start with them. It's how he's been written for like the past decade. I wasn't joking when I said I was going to use these two stories to encapsulate almost everything wrong with modern Jason. And all this character assassination for what? All to make Jason just another member of the Bat family who falls in line and hangs around the Batcave 24/7 with zero character besides that one trait that encapsulates his entire being. Like Dick being the happy one, Steph being the silly one, Tim is the smart one, etc, who all just hang out and get along, despite having less than a paragraph of dialogue between Jason and most of them. I honestly think most people who want to see him constantly with the Bat family just want to see fluffy content, actual characterization be damned. Because there's almost no logical way I can see Under the Red Hood Jason rejoining the Bat fam without some massive changes that Bruce was literally demonstrated on multiple occasions to be unwilling to make. So, now we've hit a dead end for storytelling with this version of Jason, at least in my opinion, because there isn't much interesting, sensical, or unique you can do with this status quo for him, which is just plain sad because he was once the opposite of this. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the 100th story of Jason trying to kill the Joker, conquering whatever made-up trauma the writer wants to give him this time, or torture porn of course, and finally, my favorite, him giving up killing for Bruce only to kill a person out of rage. Then he gets sad, or gets his ass beaten by Bruce easily of course, since Jason's surely no match for Batgod, which causes him to go on the run, but then he inevitably returns for a stupid event is happening at the time, where he has now given up killing for Bruce, only to kill a person out of rage. Then he gets sad, or gets his ass beaten by Bruce easily of course, since Jason's surely no match for Batgod, which causes him to go on the run, but then he inevitably returns for a stupid event is happening at the time, where he has now given up killing for Bruce, only to kill a person out of rage. Then he gets sad, or gets his ass beaten by Bruce easily of course, since Jason's surely no match for Batgod, which causes him to go on the run, but then he inevitably returns for a stupid event is happening at the time, where he has now given up killing for Bruce, only to kill a person out of rage. Then he gets sad, or gets his ass beaten by Bruce easily of course, since Jason's surely no match for Batgod. Jason is a really cool character that after 2 long-ass videos about him, you can probably tell I like a lot. His humor, backstory, and more make him one of my favorite characters in DC's catalog. At this point, like all comic characters, Jason's had so many different interpretations, from a Bat family-oriented version, to a pure psycho villain version, even to this. But it feels as though if you're a fan of the original version of Red Hood, the morally gray mobster, you don't really get any love. Like, when was the last time Winnick's Jason was ever adapted? It feels like we don't get any bones thrown to us, despite this being Jason's most popular interpretation. Like, it would be great if we got a Black Label book revolving around this take on Jason, or something, but instead DC kinda just pretends it doesn't exist in favor for giving us more Psycho Villain Todd, or Bat Family Fluffy Todd. But anyways, thank you anyone who's still here watching, and stay tuned for part 2, where I go over my fixes to Jason's character, and how I would develop his character, that may or may not be based on the Wasted Potential series from The Fourth Snake. I'll try to get that out as soon as possible, but with school and other life things, it's annoying to make videos, so sorry for any long delays. But that's enough excuse making. See you guys in part 2, and I hope you enjoyed.